Welcome, friends, to another exciting episode of A VGM Journey. And I'm your host, The Messenger. The track that we're playing in today's show is Intermission Final from the game NHL Hockey, and it was composed by Rob Hubbard. A few weeks ago, I participated in a show called VGM Fight Club, which is a podcast hosted by The Last Rican. And I was matched up against Kung Fu Carlito of the Heroes 3 podcast, and the topic of that show was 90s music. So I came up with this playlist, and I wound up losing in that VGM Fight Club. But I have to say, this track list is absolute fire, and I'm going to prove it to you guys right here on this very show. You thought that first track was pretty awesome? Well, this next one I think is going to be just as awesome. It's Metal Squad from the game Lightning Force, and that was composed by Takeshi Yoshida and Toshiharu Yamanishi. That track that you just listened to, that was Metal Squad from the game Lightning Force, and that was composed by Takeshi Yoshida and Toshiharu Yamanishi. That is the kind of track that absolutely melts faces. I mean, my face is all over the floor right now. And I know that we got a double dose of Sega Genesis goodness, so I think maybe we should head to the other system, or at least the big system, the Super Nintendo, with a pretty awesome track from the game Plok. This is Beach, and it was composed by Tim and Geoff Follin. That track that you just heard, that was Beach from the game Plok, and it was composed by Tim and Geoff Follin. What an absolute amazing piece of music. I find it very hard to believe that this was on the SNES, and yet they somehow made it work. I don't really know too much about the game. I just know that you play as this guy named Plok, and he has these weird arms and legs, kind of like Rayman, and that the soundtrack is amazing, and the game has a really bright and cartoony looking art style. Definitely give that soundtrack a listen. This next track, I promise, will be the last Genesis track that you'll hear on this episode, but I'm bringing it from Sonic and Knuckles. This is Flying Battery Zone Act 2, and it was composed by Howard Drossin. Also, Sachio, Ogawa, Tatsuyuki, Maeda, and Jun Senoue. That track that you just heard, that was Flying Battery Zone Act 2 from the game Sonic and Knuckles. It was composed by Howard Drossin, Sachio Ogawa, Tatsuyuki Maeda, and Jun Senoue. That track actually came to me from Bedroth of the Very Good Music of VGM podcast. When he heard that I was participating in the VGM Fight Club and that was the topic, the 90s music, he messaged me and said he really wanted to hear something from Sonic and Knuckles, specifically the Flying Battery Zone Act 2. So I said, hey, what the heck? I will just go for it. Why not? This next track, I think it's pretty awesome. It's Port Blue from the game Wave Race 64, and that was composed by Kazumi Totaka. That track that you just heard, that was Port Blue from the game Wave Race 64, and it was composed by Kazumi Totaka. That's going to just about do it for the show this week. If you like what you've been listening to, have your friends check the show out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever podcatching service that you could think of. I'm more than likely going to be on there. And you could email the show at vgmjourney@yahoo.com. And also check us out on Twitter at VGMJourney. I'm going to play out with one more track, which was the bonus track for VGM Fight Club. And that was At Doom's Gate from the game Doom. And that was composed by Bobby Prince. Have a good week, everyone.